Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well today. Today's upload is an upload that will leave you saying, wow, I always knew these were here and real. But one part of this upload really does kind of hammer it in, that they are real and that law enforcement and the government know about it. Before we get into it, though, a couple links. As you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, and my merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. The links to Patreon and PayPal are in the description below. My merch is displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman, Frightening Encounters, Volume 1, 2, and 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeffrey Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, the links to which are also in the description as well. Finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support this channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe, click the like button, and please leave a comment. It really does help, and it matters. And now, everyone, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's get on with today's upload, shall we? Today's first upload, or part of the upload, is William Rowe's sworn affidavit regarding a curious and terrifying encounter in 1955 in Alberta, Canada. William Rowe of the city of Edmonton in the province of Alberta make oath and say, 1. That the Exhibit A attached to this, my affidavit, is absolutely true and correct in all details, sworn before me in the city of Edmonton, province of Alberta, this 26th day of August, A.D. 1957, signed William Rowe, signed by W.H. Clark, Assistant Claims Agent, number DD 2822, Exhibit A, that sworn affidavit. Ever since I was a small boy back in the forests of Michigan, I had studied the lives and habits of wild animals. Later, when I supported my family in northern Alberta by hunting and trapping, I spent many hours just observing the wild things. They fascinated me. But the most incredible experience I ever had with a wild creature occurred near a little town called Tetjuncash, British Columbia, about 80 miles west of Jasper, Alberta. I'd been working on the highway near Tetjuncash for about 2 years. In October 1955, I decided to climb 5 miles up Micka Mountain to an old deserted mine, just for something to do. I came into sight of the mine at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon after an easy climb. I'd just come out of a patch of low brush into a clearing, and I saw what I thought was a grizzly bear in the bush on the other side. I had shot a grizzly near that spot a year before. This one was only about 75 yards away, but I didn't want to shoot it, for I had no way of getting it out. So I sat down on a small rock and watched, my rifle in hand. I could see part of the animal's head and top of one shoulder. A moment later it raised up and stepped out into the opening. Then I saw it was not a bear. This, to the best of my recollection, is what the creature looked like and how it acted as it came across the clearing directly towards me. My first impression was of a huge man, about 6 feet tall, almost 3 feet wide, and probably weighing somewhere near 300 pounds. It was covered from head to foot with dark brown silver-tipped hair. But as it came closer, I saw by its breasts that it was a female, and yet its torso was not curved like a female's. Its broad frame was straight from shoulder to hip. Its arms were much thicker than a man's arms and longer, reaching almost to its knees. Its feet were broader proportionately than a man's, about 5 inches wide at the front and tapering to much thinner heels. When it walked, it placed its heel of its foot down first, and I could see the gray-brown skin or hide on the soles of its feet. It came to the edge of the bush I was hiding in, within 20 feet of me, and squatted down on its haunches. Reaching out its hands, it pulled the branches of the bushes toward it and stripped the leaves with its teeth. Its lips curled flexibly around the leaves as it ate. I was close enough to see that its teeth were white and even. The head was higher at the back than at the front. The nose was broad and flat. The lips and chin protruded further than its nose, but the hair that covered it, leaving bare only parts of the face around the mouth, nose, and ears, made it resemble an animal as much as a human. None of its hair, even on its back of its head, was longer than an inch, and that on its face was much shorter. Its ears were shaped like a human's ears, but its eyes were small and black like a bear's, and its neck was also inhuman, thicker and shorter than any man I had ever seen. As I watched this creature, I wondered if some movie company was making a film at this place, and that what I saw was an actor, made up to look partially human and partially animal. But as I observed it more, I decided it would be impossible to fake such a specimen. Anyway, I learned later that there was no such company near that area, nor in fact did anyone live up Micka Mountain, according to the people who lived in Tetjuncash. Finally, the wild thing must have gotten my scent, for it looked directly at me through an opening in the brush. A look of amazement crossed its face. It looked so comical at that moment I had to grin. Still in a crouching position, it backed up 3 or 4 short steps, then straightened up to its full height and started to walk rapidly back the way it had come. For a moment it watched me over its shoulder as it went, not exactly afraid, but as though it wanted no contact with anything strange. The thought came to me that if I shot it, I would possibly have a specimen of great interest to scientists the world over. I had heard stories of the Sasquatch, the giant hairy Indians that live in the legends of the British Columbia Indians, and also many claim are still in fact alive today. Maybe this was a Sasquatch, I told myself. I leveled my rifle. The creature was still walking rapidly away, again turning its head to look in my direction. I lowered the rifle. Although I have called the creature it, I felt now that it was a human being, and I knew I would never forgive myself for killing it. Just as it came to the other patch of brush, it threw its head back and made a peculiar noise that seemed to be a half laugh and half language, and which I can only describe as a kind of whiny. Then it walked from the small brush into a stand of lodgepole pine. I stepped out into the opening and looked across the small ridge just beyond the pine to see if I could see it again. It came out on the ridge a couple of 100 yards away from me, tipped its head back again, and again emitted the only sound I had heard it make. But what this half laugh, half language was meant to convey, I don't know. It disappeared then. I never saw it again. I wanted to find out if it lived on vegetation entirely or ate meat as well, so I went down and looked for signs. I found it in 5 different places, and although I've examined it thoroughly, I could find no hair or shells or bugs, insects, so I believe it was strictly vegetarian. I found one place where it had slept for a couple of nights under a tree. Now the nights were cool up in the mountain, at this time of year especially, and yet it had not used a fire. I found no sign that it possessed even the simplest of tools, nor a single companion while in this place. Whether this was a Sasquatch, I do not know. It will always remain a mystery to me unless another one is found. I hereby declare the above statement to be in every part true, to the best of my powers of observation and recollection. Signed, William Rowe. You know, when I first saw this sworn affidavit, I was like, this is a sworn affidavit. This is a legal binding document. You will be in trouble if you lie on a sworn affidavit. And it's truly amazing, I don't know if this gentleman, his observation of vegetarian was wrong or not, but, we've all heard the stories of Sasquatch eating meat. I've heard of him yoking a deer up right in front of a hunter that was going to, pop the deer. But, just from that brief observation, he was able to see the teeth. And to see a Squatch amazed like that would have been absolutely amazing. It was probably startled at first, looking through the brush, you think you're alone. Then all of a sudden, boom, there's a human, kind of like us. If we were just, in the woods and we peeked through this brush and boom, there's a Squatch. A very interesting experience. And I'm glad I was able to share it with you guys because it's definitely cool. Tonight's second experience comes to us from Ohio. I don't care if you believe me or not. Witness to creature called Dogman or werewolf in the autumn of 2013. The witness had not only one encounter, but had a second sighting of an unusual, frightening being. The witness was working night shifts at the time, which meant he had to travel the dark roads in the sighting area on a regular basis. One night as he was traveling down Johnson Road, which borders Silver Creek Metro Park, he abruptly stopped his car as two deer raced across the road heading south. What he saw pursuing them was attention-grabbing. I would place them somewhere between 6.5 to 7 feet tall. They chased two deer, which were both smaller, by the way, out across the street and into the woods. They ran in formation, one in front, two behind, kind of next to each other. They were roughly 30 to 40 yards behind the deer. They were bipedal, very muscular and fast, lightning fast. It all happened in just a few seconds. I couldn't describe any features, unfortunately. I'm assuming it was either a new moon or cloudy because it was very dark. But they were definitely dark in color, maybe a chocolate brown or black color. The witness was questioned if perhaps he had seen a Bigfoot. There are many reported sightings of them in Ohio, said the witness. They say the Bigfoot has long arms that swing when it runs, and it runs like a human. Whatever these were, they were not Bigfoot. I cannot describe how they moved, but they did not move like a person. It was only a couple of weeks later when the witness was again heading home on Johnson Road. As he was driving past a cornfield, something ran out in front of his car. The fields had full-grown corn stalks, but I don't know exact heights, only that the corn stalks were taller than me by a head and I'm 6 foot. This time, my sighting of two creatures was a quick flash because there was no open land to it. They basically leapt the road as they broke the corn and landed about 10 to 15 feet into the field on the other side and kept running. This time, the pair that I saw in the moonlight, the first was black and the second was black with white or silver on its chest and back. Since the first three I saw were all solid color, that means there are at least 4 different creatures. Today's third experience. This is basically a Beast of Bray Road sighting, but it happened in southern Indiana, far from Bray Road. I'm wondering if anyone else has had or heard of sightings in this same area. For the record, this is not a werewolf story. What I saw was an animal, not a shapeshifter. I know the beast is often called a werewolf, but I don't buy that explanation. My sighting happened between 92 and 95. Because I only lived in the area during that time, my best guess is that it was 92 to 93, because I was coming home late at night at around 1 or 2 in the morning without my then fiancée, and she would have been with me after 93. The sighting happened on State Line Road, just off of Route 50, in southern Indiana/Ohio, right by Hidden Valley Lake. You can see on Google Maps that the area is still pretty wooded, even 25 years later. The usual caveats apply. I had not been drinking, and I was not on drugs. I had just turned onto State Line Road from Route 50, and I saw a large animal in the road. It looked like a huge dog hunched over roadkill. As I neared it, I began to suspect it was one of my neighbor's dogs. He had 2 Irish wolfhounds. If you don't know, those are huge dogs that stand about 3 foot at the shoulders. I assumed one of them had gotten out. By this time, I was slowing down because the animal didn't seem aware of my car, and I was 30 yards away. I was starting to plan how I was going to get the dog that big into my car so I could drive it home, and also wondering if wolfhounds were typically dangerous to approach. I was also trying to figure out if I should wake the neighbors up or just try and tie the dog up outside or something. As my mind raced through these thoughts, this all happened in just a few seconds. The animal finally turned and looked at my car, so I stopped the car completely. Its face looked more like the shape of a police dog's than a wolfhound, and that threw me. I remember wondering why my neighbor's dog looked so strange. And then the animal simply stood up on its hind legs and calmly walked off onto the west, into tall grass off the road. My mind at this point is still trying to reconcile how this was my neighbor's wolfhound. I literally thought he had trained his dogs to walk on 2 legs and had never told us. Then it all started to sink in. The shape of the head was wrong, the build of the dog was too muscular, and it walked like a human, not a circus dog. My mind loped back to that. Of course, it had walked off like a human on 2 legs. And its gaze lingered on me, as if its attitude was telling me I didn't have to move, you know. The fur was long and shaggy and gray, although in the darkness I could have misjudged the color, and my mind filled it in with the color I was expecting to see my neighbor's wolfhound. I watched it walk, still casually, until it was swallowed by the shadows and trees on the other side of the small field. I was terrified to drive the rest of the way home. I never mentioned it to anyone, but in the morning I asked my mom if the neighbor's dogs had gotten out, and when she asked why I wanted to know, I just said I thought I had seen one of them. But both dogs were accounted for, and neither had gotten out. Then, about 10 years later, I heard Linda Godfrey on Coast to Coast talking about the beast of Bray Road, and I was like, that's exactly what I saw. It was even the same time period as the original Bray Road flap. With that confirmation, I finally started to tell people about what I had seen and asked if anyone else had seen anything like it. And of course, no one had. That's my experience. So here's a person who obviously saw a Dogman. Probably the only story or encounter they had ever heard was the Beast of Bray Road, so that's what they're going to call it. And as we all know, werewolves do not transform. I think skinwalkers do. I really do have that feeling that they do transform into kind of a coyote-like humanoid thing, but not nearly as big as a Dogman would be. Really fascinating event and very detailed. And I really, really enjoyed the detail he or she had in their explanation. Oh, maybe she, I don't know. They had in their explanation of the Dogman. It was very well observed, which is seldom done. So, very cool. Today's fourth experience is a subscriber submission. Hey Jeff, love the channel. I've been a daily listener for about a year now. So my unit out of Fort Drum came down to West Point to run support operations for the cadet summer training events. About 2/3 of my platoon were in charge of running the live fire range, basically where the NCOs would run behind a cadet as he bounds up the live fire lane. This range also required a gate guard detail, which I, being the sometimes lazy person that I am, would jump at the opportunity to do this. The gate at the entrance of the range was down a gravel road and is surrounded by forest on either side. It's extremely rural. About 2 weeks into this live fire range detail, I was pulling gate guard duty with my friend Steven. We're just BSing around, showing each other memes, when suddenly we heard a strange guttural sound coming from the right of us. Mind you, it is 2 or 3 p.m. on a hot, late May afternoon. We saw a large black bipedal creature in a full sprint through the forest going direction opposite of us. We saw this creature sprint about 15 to 20 yards. It must have been about 70 yards or so away from us. After seeing this black creature sprinting at breakneck pace, it went behind a tree and promptly disappeared. This thing did not pay me or my friend any mind. We stood there for a good 2 minutes, just completely stunned. I think it may have been transported via portal. We never said anything to our leadership about this encounter, under fear of being ridiculed or being labeled crazy. There were also ramblings among the battalion of other paranormal happenings, specifically at the ammo distribution point. People said they heard screaming in the woods at night along with some described devil music. Where they had us staying was a place called Camp Natural Bridge, a former POW camp for German soldiers in World War II. Lots of strange paranormal energy around West Point. Feel free to use this on your channel. Have a great one. Today's fifth subscriber submission. Jeff, my name's JW. I live in Trenton, Georgia. Saturday night, my mom and I were on our way to the store. There's a field right down the road from our house, and as we are coming up on this field, I saw glowing yellow eyes. These yellow eyes were 8 feet off the ground. I watched the eyes blink, and then just like that, those eyes took off in a flash. I asked my mom if she had seen the eyes, and she said no, she wasn't paying attention. I know what I saw, Jeff, and I know I'm not crazy. I know it was a Dogman, and this is not the first time I've experienced anything like this. 2 years ago, around this time, I was asleep, and I had gotten woken up at around 3 in the morning. Before I go any further, the way my bed is set up, it's right by my window. My head is right by the window. Anyway, like I was saying, I was woken up at 3 in the morning to something sniffing outside of my window. It was sniffing around my windowsill. I woke up, and I'm just lying there. I'm wondering what it is, and about that time it lets out this blood-curdling growl. It was a growl I've never heard before, and all I had to do was put my head under the covers, cover my ears. Jeff, it had scared me so bad. I'm not an easy person to scare. And I'm not, but this scared me so bad I had been crying. I know for the fact that it was a Dogman, and I know it was. If you'd like to share this, you can. Thanks, JW. Also, my bedroom window is 7 to 8 feet off the ground. Today's sixth experience is a subscriber submission. Hello, Jeff. Let me first say that I'm having trouble typing this due to hand pain and stiffness, so please excuse any grammatical mistakes. I started listening to you, I believe, in 2019. Like most people, I was listening to Bigfoot stuff, and that led me into Dogman. When I first heard this term, I thought, what on earth? So, of course, I started to look into it. Then listened to a few experiences on other channels, then found you. So I subbed to you, and I've been listening ever since. My point of the email, Jeff, is my husband has been taking me to Tennessee last couple of years for our anniversary, and this is on January 1st. And this last little trip, we were coming back from Dollywood area, driving over to our Airbnb we rented, and it's at least 11:30 or later at night. And I was on the passenger side of our truck. I'm always looking around constantly to help my husband avoid any critters, big, huge animal lovers. Anyway, I saw something off the side of the road, back roads darkish and twisty type home scattered, and it was on my side. I can't say the distance without ranging it over with my husband and getting back to you if you're interested in more details. But this creature is at the near bottom of the person's property. Mostly grass, not tall, it's winter, and I immediately was in shock almost at what I was seeing. Mind you, my husband does not drive fast, and we especially go slower at night on roads that we do not know. So I see this thing, and I tell my husband, I just saw something. My husband never knows what this will be, LOL, with me. But I say to him I can't understand it. I ask if he would turn around, but I know he's getting way too tired to find a safe pull-off and go back. I can't figure out what I saw, Jeff. I've been looking at pictures of anything to even slightly resemble what I'd seen that night. I finally found one recently, although not exactly the size, but pretty darn close overall enough for me to say, this is it. Now, what is it? And I'm hoping I can send you a screenshot. This was off of something I found on YouTube, I think a trail cam. Again, I can give you more details, and you can take a look at it. Maybe even ask your viewers, does anyone know what this is? It wasn't normal looking at all to me. At first, I thought it was a strange, emaciated Great Dane, like really starving, like a greyhound skinny, and its head was all wrong to be a Great Dane. So the head wasn't boxy, more like a coyote slender type, very, very long limbs as well, all four. I could try and recreate all of this as far as height, length, based on what I saw and how close we were to it, but again, you need to let me know what you think when I send a photo. I know you're very busy, but I also know from listening to you every day, since first started listening, that you take everything serious and into account nothing too small, if it can help people. If I can get it sent tonight, I will do it in the morning when my husband is awake to help me. Thank you again for reading this. And stay on it, Jeff. You're doing a remarkable job getting the knowledge out there. God bless. I'm going to send this subscriber an email, and I'm not going to use her real name unless she gives me permission to, but if you're listening to this, I did not get the picture. I will send you an email. I'd like to have you come on maybe with your husband and share what you saw and kind of fill in the blanks with some more details if you're willing, but I will send you an email as well. Tonight's final subscriber submission. Jeff, I've been researching cryptids for a few years now. I think I've been linked up with you for a couple. So let me first say thank you for what you're doing. I live in a tiny little town of maybe 500 in Vernon Parish, Louisiana. We're in the country. We live in this place for about 8 years now, off and on my whole life. There have been strange things happening around here the last couple of months. First, we have a bad coyote problem here. The old man that used to hunt and trap them to keep the population under control died or just became unable to. No one has stepped into that position, and therefore they've just been growing out of control. We have heard them every evening and early mornings for years, and it's scary to hear there are so many coming from different directions. I guess packs are answering back and forth. It scared us for a while. Wouldn't let the kids out during those times. Over the years, we've just gotten used to it. Have friends or family over, and if they sounded off, they wanted to go in or leave from fear. About 6 to 8 weeks ago, we became aware that we weren't hearing them. Something we were talking about because it was strange. Then people/family several miles away were talking about lots of coyotes that had been showing up and were scared. They had moved by a couple miles. They've never had them there. We have not heard them over this entire time. I cannot stress enough how unusual this is. Now on to the next strange happening. Our neighbors, who live right down the road, had a mama goat and a kid killed and left. Just clawed up and killed and just left there. Nothing eaten. We were all leaning toward it had to be a big cat, a panther. The next night a horse was attacked and taken down. The horse was not dead when found, but had to be dispatched. Again, just mauled, not eaten. Same type of marks. These all happened within a mile radius about 5 weeks ago, right behind the coyotes leaving. There was another farm where horses were attacked. We've been hearing strange animals and screams off and on. This morning, my neighbor stopped to tell us what she had witnessed 2 days ago. She was out front with my daughter talking. As I was walking up, she was pointing at her and said, "As tall as you." Not as tall as your mama, and I'm 5'11". I have no reason not to believe this woman. She said she saw a couple little fawns laying, and she was smitten with the cuteness. She saw them spring to attention, and she started to look for the threat. She said, out of a tree line came this giant dog, but not a dog. It was up on 2 legs running, and the speed was frightening. It had large, tall ears that made no sound. She was warning us that she had seen something big and scary that she had never seen before. We knew what she was talking about immediately. We were all passing chill bumps and hair standing back and forth. She was very excited and on edge. There have been lots of strange, unordinary things happening around here. Then to hear that, it feels a little different when it's hitting your home. I'm simply emailing you this information because I'm sure at this point you have a map with dots and thought you might like to log this one in, praying this is the end of our saga. But you best believe we are on watch and packing to check the mail. Be safe, Jeff. Thank you again. All right, I am going to actually email all of these subscribers who sent in their experiences and see if they'd all like to come on and share. With that, I hope you guys enjoyed tonight's upload or today's upload as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. Some really good ones. And that affidavit, man, I mean, these are really good subscriber submissions and other encounters that I just stumbled across. Pretty good upload if I do say so myself. Anyway, folks, have a good day and stay safe. May the Great Spirit watch over us all, and may He guide us down that path that, well, we call life.